I saw you today. Well, not you, someone who moved the same way. And my heart did something stupid. It believed you'd come back. Even if you really had been standing there, I probably still couldn't have spoken, because what could I even say now? That I still think about you, even when I tell myself to stop? It was one of her hundreds of letters. Anna used to write them in the evenings, when the apartment sank into silence, and the only sound was the ticking of the old clock. She kept them in a wooden box under her bed, scarred by an accidental hammer strike, just like her. Inside lay all those letters, witnesses to her love, her pain, her healing. She and Alex hadn't really broken up. There was no scene, no goodbye. One day, while Anna was at work, Alex just packed his things and moved to another city. She stayed in Portland, changed a few jobs, learned to live without him, or at least pretend to. 4 years passed. Today, she was packing boxes. A new start, a new apartment, finally ready to let go of everything that still whispered, us. She held the old box in her hands, opened it, and froze. Letters, dozens, maybe hundreds of pages she had written and never sent. "No," she whispered, "not now." Anna gathered them into a paper bag to burn later and stepped out of the apartment. But her neighbor, Mrs. Collins, opened her door at that exact moment. She needed help, her blood pressure again, and Anna stayed with her until she felt better. She'd always done that when Mrs. Collins asked. So this time, too, she hastily left the bag by the door so she wouldn't forget it. One letter slipped out and fell to the floor. When she came back, the letter was gone. "Hi," a voice said from the doorway. "Alex, the same one." A little older, a little wearier, but those eyes hadn't changed. "Hi," Anna's voice betrayed her. How are you here?" "I was helping a coworker move furniture up to the 4th floor. I looked out his window, saw you downstairs with a bag. By the time I ran outside, you were gone. Just the bag and a letter beside it. I thought I'd put it back with the rest, but then I saw your handwriting and my name. I honestly thought you didn't live here anymore." She went pale. You read it?"
Yeah, not all of it. I'm sorry. At first, I couldn't believe it was really you writing, and then I couldn't stop. Anna took a step back. She wanted to scream, to run, to erase the moment, but instead she just stood there. "Those weren't letters to you, Alex. They were to the ghost of you, to someone I'd already buried." He was silent. His fingers nervously tightened around the bag of letters. "I know. And for the first time, I finally understood how badly I messed up back then. Can I come in? Maybe we could just talk." They walked into the apartment, as if hypnotized. Anna sat across from him at the kitchen table, arms crossed. "Why, Alex? To say what?" He shook his head. "No excuses. I just wanted to see what your life looks like now, who you became." She laughed, dryly, bitterly. "Alex, don't say it like they do in movies. You didn't want to know about me for 4 years. I learned to live without you. It's over." He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "In that letter, you wrote, 'I forgive you.' I read those words 3 times, and every time it felt less like forgiveness and more like a scream. And what are you going to do with that scream now, Alex?" Her voice was almost a whisper. "Listen to it. Finally." Outside, the rain began to fall. They stood on the balcony. 2 meters of silence and 4 years of distance between them that weighed like a lifetime. "Are you married?" she asked. "No." "Someone else?" "There was, but it wasn't the same. Not even close." She turned away. Don't tell me you never forgot. This isn't a movie, Alex. I'm not saying that. I just realized I didn't see everything back then, didn't hear everything, didn't feel everything. He pulled out one of the letters, crumpled, hastily opened. In this one you wrote, "We're both guilty. You for not asking, me for staying silent."
So you didn't read just one letter? Two, and neither to the end. Yes, she said quietly, we're both guilty. And what does it change? The rain turned into a downpour. Water streamed down the glass, as if erasing everything that once was. Anna stood by the window, trying to understand what hurt more, the fact that he left back then or that he came back now. She didn't know what to say, only her heart, stubborn, foolish heart, suddenly trembled, like that first night they met at the bus stop, when he laughed and covered her from the rain with his jacket. The past had returned, but not as a ghost, as a question time was finally demanding an answer to. You said silence means peace, but after you, it became thick and suffocating. I kept talking to you in my head so I wouldn't go crazy. I imagined you listening, and now I realize it was only me listening. Anna watched as he unfolded that same letter. His fingers trembled, though he tried to hide it. I never knew you went through so much, Alex said quietly. I thought you just moved on. You always thought, she smiled faintly. Instead of asking, he was silent. Outside, the city hummed. Car horns, rain pouring off rooftops, a bicycle bell. Everything ordinary except this moment. Anna took a sip of coffee and felt the air grow heavier, not with nostalgia, but with the distance between who they were and who they'd become. You know, she said, not looking at him, I didn't write those letters for you to ever read them. It was therapy, my way to survive. And now, he asked. She smiled bittersweet. Now I'm not the girl who wrote "Come back." I'm the woman who learned not to wait. They stepped outside into the Portland evening. The rain had calmed, street lights glowed amber, the pavement still warm. Where are we going? She asked. I don't know, just walk with me. They walked in silence along the riverfront, where they once had their first walk. Everything had changed. New cafes, street musicians, the scent of cinnamon and wet coffee, and yet it felt like time had looped, and they were back at the beginning. Remember that bench? He pointed under the willow. You said you didn't like photographs because they freeze time. And you said that's exactly why we should take them, to freeze what hurts. They both smiled. Memory had no scent, yet it smelled like wet leaves and the past. Why did you leave, Alex? She asked suddenly. You never told me. He stopped. I was afraid. Not of you, of myself, of not being enough. I had nothing. Too many thoughts. Honestly, I still can't fully answer that question. I just thought you were too good for me. That you'd never love me the way I loved you. There was always something unsaid between us, and that scared me. Did you ever ask me what I wanted? No, he admitted, eyes down. I decided for both of us. Classic, she sighed. The hero who leaves to protect. He looked up. I was a kid in a grown man's body. I thought love was about doing the right thing. Turns out, it's about staying, even when it's hard. They sat on that same bench, silent. A couple passed by, laughing, holding hands, and it stung to realize that wasn't them anymore. Are you seeing anyone? He asked quietly. A few attempts, but after you, everything feels like rehearsal. He exhaled. Me too. I tried, but I kept comparing. It's not fair. To whom? Them or me? To everyone. Anna pulled out one last letter. From her bag. Unopened. Unaddressed. Just a blank page she'd left for closure. I wrote this one when I realized I wanted to start over, but not with you, with myself. He looked at her closely. Can I read it? No. It's the only one I don't want you to see. Okay, he said softly. Then just tell me, are you happy? She thought for a moment. I'm getting there.
And you don't regret how it all turned out? I regret that we never talked, but I don't forgive myself for waiting for an apology instead of moving on. The dim streetlight illuminated her face, and Alex realized he had never seen her so real. No masks, no roles. Anna, he said after a pause, being here with you, I think I'm finally saying goodbye to who I used to be. I know we're not the same anymore. We both have our lives, our scars, our worlds. She looked at him for a long moment. Then maybe this is the first truly right thing you've done. He smiled, and maybe not the last. When they walked back, the city was asleep. For a moment, it felt like they were those same young dreamers again, naive and in love with their illusions. But now it was different, calmer, deeper. She knew he would leave tomorrow, and maybe she'd never see him again. And that was okay, because for the first time in years, Anna didn't feel empty. Back home, in the kitchen, she opened the last letter, wrote a new date, and for the first time, without my love, without why, without pain. I thought my letters were about you, but they were about me. You were the beginning, not the ending. I've finally gathered all my pieces. She placed the letter in an envelope, unsigned. Instead of hiding it, she set it on the windowsill to burn in the morning. Then she smiled, calmly, genuinely, because for the first time in a long while, nothing hurt anymore. Strange, isn't it? We spent years learning to let go of each other, and only when we did, we met again. Maybe love isn't about possession. Maybe it's about understanding, even if it's too late. 3 days passed after that night. Anna decided to stay in the apartment a few more days. She didn't expect him to come back. She just wanted to live in the quiet for a bit longer, to say goodbye to the life she'd outgrown. She drank coffee on the balcony, listened to the rain, washed the windows as if trying to erase every fingerprint of the past, when her phone suddenly lit up with a familiar name. Alex, I'm leaving today. Wanted to leave something for you. Can I stop by for a minute? She replied simply, you can. When he walked in, he held a small wooden box in his hands. It was their old little love game. Whoever left for work first would put a note inside with words of love. This is the only thing I kept, he said. For more than a year after I left, I kept writing love notes to you and putting them in here. I don't even know why. Maybe it was my therapy too. Then, one day, I burned them all, knowing I'd never see you again. But I did keep one. She opened the lid. Inside was just a single note. His handwriting, but her words. We don't change people. We just touch each other so deeply that we change ourselves. She looked up and smiled. You remembered. Yes, he nodded. I wrote that after I realized it was over. And what if it's not over? She asked quietly. He smiled. Then let it be a beginning, but a different one. They sat at the table, silent. The air felt light, like before rain. And something had shifted, as if the house, once heavy with pain, had finally exhaled. I don't know if we still need each other, Anna said, but I do know this. It doesn't hurt anymore. Then I finally did something right, he replied. He pulled out an old photo from that summer when they were carefree. They were standing on a beach, wet, smiling, the ocean behind them. I kept this photo in my wallet for 4 years, he said, and only now can I put it in our little wooden box and leave it there. She looked at the picture, at 2 strangers they once were, and smiled. We used to think love was always forever. He nodded. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone isn't to come back. It's to show up one last time to prove that everything you went through mattered. He stood up. You're strong, Anna. You're real. Don't lose that. And you, she began, then paused. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for coming back. Too late for us, but just in time for me. He smiled. Not sadly, but with relief. You once wrote that I taught you pain, but now you've taught me peace. Fair trade, she said, without irony this time. He touched her shoulder briefly, a gesture of gratitude, not farewell, and left. The door closed. Anna stayed in the quiet. But this silence was different, not empty, full of peace. On the table lay their little love box, with his last note and the old photo. She took a fresh sheet of paper, began to write, not about him, about herself, about how she'd changed, how she'd learned to love without fear, without clinging, without pain. Love doesn't end when someone leaves. It just changes its address. Sometimes it comes home, not to stay, but to say thank you and move on. She put down the pen, took a deep breath, stepped out onto the balcony. The sunrise touched the sky with a gentle pink glow. And in that light, she finally felt that everything was in its place. Because sometimes a happy ending isn't when they end up together, but when both finally become whole, apart. A few days later, Anna was already living in her new apartment, with white walls, fresh air, and the smell of coffee. She met new people, smiled more, spoke honestly. In her old place, the past stayed behind, embodied in that little wooden love box on the kitchen table. Sometimes, passing a bookstore, she caught herself thinking she might see him by chance, but she wasn't afraid anymore, because she knew now the past isn't the enemy, and love, having changed its shape, had only grown stronger. She smiled, looking at the letter that remained, then gently placed it in an envelope and wrote the address, "To myself." And this time, she sent it